So welcome you, sir, on behalf of ICT Academy and behalf of the entire team. Now that we have listened to Mr. Sai Prakash, a leading academician or academic leader in South India, and now we will be listening the perspectives of industry and honest inputs on what the future is going to look like. And I'm sure most of you in South will know about Mr. Satish Rajarathnam. He is the SVP HR at Mphasis, a leading IT company. He is also a TEDx speaker and a mentalist. So we know he's got more than around 25 years of experience. He's a very seasoned HR professional, and he's led a lot of human resource development positions, in multiple industries. And he's also closely associated with also organizations like SHRM, LEGO, BCMM, Six Sigma, etc. So I'm sure with this strong background on the HR for several years, his inputs to the teachers are going to be vital. So over to Mr. Satish Rajarathnam.
Thank you so much, Anbu. Thanks, Saravnan and Sai. I know it's going to be very difficult for me to match up the expertise that you bring into the table. Just a quick check. Am I audible, clear, Anbu?
Very much, sir. Please go ahead.
Sounds good. So I'm going to take a different tangent altogether, right? So I covered most of the technology piece and upskilling piece and so on. So I thought I will step back a little and give you a perspective of what is changing or what is probably changing, right? So I'm going to pull up a quick, whilst we are talking about skills, what is needed and what is not needed and so on, rightly pointed out, the industry is changing drastically, right? The disruption is happening phenomenally. If you look at it, a lot of companies have now started saying, employees need not come back to work. They can just work from home going forward. They need to just set up the infra and so on and so forth. So there is a huge disruption technology-wise that's already happening, right? The operating model has changed. Business is now saying, I want to venture into newer avenues. If you look at it, a couple of hoteliers or bakers, they've now started selling vegetables, right? I mean, that's a very rudimentary example I thought I'll pick up. Now they've shut shop for their hotel food, but they're now selling, bakeries and vegetables. I mean, that's a disruption that you see in the last 1.5 to 2 months, because they're not allowed to get people come into the restaurant and have food. But what people need is about vegetables and quick eats and so on. And they've started getting into that market. So they're already shifting their mindset towards that, right? So that's one piece that you're looking at. The third one we're looking at is about also the process disruption, right? In the sense, there are companies that are now getting into a different processes from what they are doing. For example, you have a cab provider who've gotten into food delivery. I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, right? You have an e-commerce portal, right, which started selling airline ticketing, right? So look at the disruption that's happening. So technology-wise, operation process-wise, or business model-wise, there is a huge disruption that's happening in the industry. And that too, it has scaled up significantly in the last 1.5 to 2 months. Yeah. So that's a change that you would see. That's a change that is there. So, yesterday's announcement of 20 lakh crore, part of 10% GDP investment for MSMEs and institutes and for underprivileged community and so on. All of these are going to thrive on that, right? And we're going to start mushrooming big time. You also heard Sai suggesting few technologies that are disrupting. I'm sure you would have heard about large conglomerate coming and saying, we're going to move business from one region into India, right? So are we ready? Are we ready for this disruption that's happening technology-wise? Are we ready for this disruption that's happening the way that we operate today? Are we ready for the disruption that's happening from a business change scenario standpoint as well, right? Take, for example, in 2025 or 2030, you will see a driverless Uber car, right? Autonomous cars coming in. In fact, Tesla has already tested out, Google has already tested out autonomous cars and Jeeps and vans and so on and so forth, right? It's just a matter of time that they're going to get the algorithm correct and starting to put that into use, right? So these are changes that are driving. Just because I come in from a little bit of IT background, I thought I would bring in the IT spec much deeper, and also given from an academia perspective where we can focus better. just to like I said, I'm going to go a little higher up the value chain. Let's look at 2030. Are we ready? Right? Are we ready from skill standpoint? Are we ready from infrastructure standpoint? Are we ready from business standpoint? Are we ready from processes standpoint? Right? Why is it that I want to table all these thoughts? Because the folks in this call, all of us are equally responsible to propel these changes that Sai spoke, and also what I'm going to allude towards as well, right? We are the pillars to get this shift happen. If we do not step up and make it happen, 2030 will look totally different. We will lose out on the race, and we will still be a developing nation and not a developed nation. So that is where we need to understand the nuances better. So what quickly to summarize on this slide, right? Guys, we're going to have 400 million job occupation impact, right? That's a shift that you will see because of technology. Those number of jobs going to change drastically. And if we fast pace this, there is going to be 800 million job change that's going to happen because of automation, right? So are we ready to cope up with this? Are we ready to do upskilling and cross-skilling to make sure this job shift is not impacting significantly for our workforce, right? That is something that this group, the 3,000 group that we have right now, we are going to create that skill. We're going to build that skill and upskill, right? Having said this, yeah, this is just a quick snapshot. Having said this, if you look at the India perspective, right? Like I said, 375 million workers may switch their occupation. Today, whilst you're talking, there are Uber drivers and Ola drivers and so on. But by 2030, you're going to have autonomous cars. You may not have drivers at all, right? Everything is going to be smart, automated cars. So what's going to happen to these drivers? How do we upskill them? How do we repurpose them? How do we put them onto a different occupation, right? Food delivery, you talk about that, right? You talk about ticket booking, you talk about collectors, you talk about tellers in a bank. What will you do? All of these are going to get automated. All of these are going to made much more smart ways of working, right? How are you going to cope up with that? And that is something that I thought I will spend some time around, right? On this. What's a change? Like I said, 375 million people, the number of occupation that they're doing today is going to change. That means we need to learn newer skills. That means the 3,000 plus people in this call, along with global academicians that you're talking about, we need to step up and see how do we bridge the skill gap? How do we identify future skills and how do you bridge the skill gap, right? How do you deploy newer technology, right? And that is going to be very, very critical whilst you're talking about it, right? Okay, just a quick snapshot. Industry-wise, if you look at it, agriculture has got a significant impact. They've gone down by 5,500 basis points, which is 45.9% change in the way that they've been working, right? There has been tremendous.
Hey, so quickly, from an industry perspective, the challenge that we would have, rather we would definitely have, and what we're having today, is also to see how we can enable customer experience, right? Today, you take our own example. You walk into a restaurant, you get to see, you order a food, you want to see the flavor around it. You want to see how they are serving the food. You want to see that experience more than what they serve in itself, right? It is not the food, but it is how they serve the food, right? How they take care of you, how courteous they are, and so on and so forth. When you walk into a bank, for example, you want to open an account, what do? Right? You're looking at how soon an account can be opened or how soon your query can be resolved. So that is changing drastically. People are now, if I were to go on the lighter side, people are now losing their patience, right? They don't want to kind of wait for something. They want to get things done instantaneously, right? So that is a customer experience. And this is having a significant impact from an organization culture standpoint. Right? The next generation kids that are coming in, they also wanted to do what they like to do and what not the customer wanting them to do as well. So how do we bridge these two together, right? And that throws out to the challenge that how do I create that employee experience, right? Today, most of the millennials want to do express themselves, right? They don't want to be boxed. They don't want to kind of put them onto what we call as the development center, ODC, into a big cubicle and say, start working with your colleagues, and this is your day job and so on. They are saying, I would want to do the work at my own pace, but I will deliver it to you. Do not monitor me on a day-to-day basis. You tell me what is the outcome, we will work on it. So the mindset, right, the adaptability, the speed, the agility is changing, right? And these are what the pointers that even Sai brought in his discussion. How do we, as academicians, as HR professionals, build these competencies within the next generation talent, which is going to be fairly challenging, right? How do we create next generation leaders? Today, there are a lot of leaders who are little predated, right? They want to operate the way that they wanted to, but technology has moved much faster, much ahead of them. So how do you build next generation leaders? Again, institutes like us, institutes like you are the fulcrum, right? You need to build in that what we call as the entrepreneurial skill with the kids who are passing out or with the students who are passing out from your universities as well, right? Okay, so that is what we're looking at. So how do we build those skills? Availability of skilled talent, your AI, your machine learning, your virtual learning, your Pythons, your R's of the world, you name it, your Kamundas. If you look at the names, it is all old days movies or some characters. But those are the skill that is going to rule going forward. That's the next 5 years we're looking at, right? We're looking at front end, you're looking at UIs, all of these are technology perspective. But I'm saying these are skills that are going to drive the technology shift, right? And how do we bring all of these much ahead into our universities? Anbu spoke about it. How do we bring this within our undergraduation program? Can we start doing it? Because I get to see 8th standard, 9th standard now talking about R programming and Python, right? And I heard it just few years back, right? And today, 8th and 9th standard kids are now started working on programming and coding skills, right? My daughter has done a game using a free open coder part and said, if you hit the mouse button, right, it'll wide open, a shell, and there you get to see what you call as a bead type, right? So you win that bead. So it gives her that excitement. It's simple programming. She says when you hit open and when you open, click on the button and you gain that credit. So she writes in simple English, which is get converted into a code, and that is now a game. So people have now started to write coding in a much easier way. So everything is shifting, right? So having said that, how do we build that agility is something that we need to look at as well. Like I said, these are the enablers. How do we as academicians or HR professionals enable such talent is something that we need to really ponder about, right? I'm going to take some more time on this slide specifically, right? Now, I know I'm talking about IT here, but if you look at it across the line of business we're talking about, I did show this. If you look at all of these, right, across retail, across construction industry, across transportation industry, across manufacturing, mining, you take any of these industry, telecommunication, healthcare, banking, entertainment, education, government industries, and so on. Any of these industries, if you look at it, there is going to be a significant shift in the employability, right, by 2030. That's a huge shift that we're looking at. And for that, how do we build the skill? How do we build the right set of skill we are looking about? And that is what I meant here by role-based learning. As academia, as HR professionals, as industry experts, how do we build such skills? And in fact, that's a topic that we are even talking about, right? How do we identify future-ready skills? That in itself is a big challenge, right? Today, everybody talks about digital skills, but not everybody would know what is that. It is changing. Today, it could be AI, machine learning, robotics, Blue Prism, or whatever, cloud, cybersecurity. But in the next 1-2 months, or in the next 6 months or to 1 year, that skill is going to change drastically. All that I'm trying to table here is, can you create a learning agility rather than looking at a specific curricula or a skill? Are we ready to create a template by saying every 6 months, can I refresh our university curricula? Or every 1 year, we can refresh our university curricula. I'm not saying across. There has to be fundamentals. That is not going to change. But all of these job aiding skills, can we quickly create that learning agility, right? Can we quickly put our mind into it by saying, this is how I'm going to go back every 3 months and check what we're teaching in our universities, what we're teaching in our organizations. Is it relevant 6 months from now? If it's not, can I go back and relook at it, right? And that is what we need to start doing, right? And that is what I meant by continuous upskilling and cross-skilling as well. And that will aid us to be continuously upskilling our talent and make them future ready to go forward. Yeah, this is something very, very critical. I'm not just talking about only the skill, but I'm also talking about creating an entrepreneurial mindset, right? How do we create leaders, right? Sai, with your permission, if I could quote you, look at Sai, right? Look at Sai, how he has moved on to kind of be the group head, group chief of this entire institute that you're talking about. Most of us in this call, right, would have moved on from where we used to be to where we are today, right? Anbu, who's anchoring this entire session, Saravanan, who's also there in this call from ICT. Look at the kind of work that they've been doing. This is not the work they would have done 5 years back. But look at the transition that all of us have been through. And that is what I meant by entrepreneurial skill. Can we create leaders? Do we have a model to create leaders? Now, when I say the model, can we create leaders with the ability who can be a path breaker, right? We're not looking at someone who's very indecisive. There are people who are much hard-stoned. They don't want to look at change coming and hitting them. And they're still there saying, no, nothing is going to happen to my business. Nothing will happen to me. I've been here 20 years. I've done this 20 years. So nothing is going to change. This has worked. My earnest request to most of these folks who are claiming to be that they've done it and they've been there. Yes, with the current situation, with the last 20 years, last couple of decades, that is okay. But the future does not hold good. What you've done before is not going to take you to the future, right? How do we create this empowered, accountable, self-owned entrepreneurs, if I were to put it that way, is going to be critical, right? And we from this group, from the group of 3,000 plus academicians in this call, how do we create that entrepreneurship? Is also a skill which we'll have to reckon for the future, right? So it is not just the soft skills or a hard skill, but also what we're talking about is a leadership skill. How do we build that for future as well, right? Okay. Now, I spoke about employee experience. How do we get that? Sai, you spoke about it as well. You touched upon. Today, most of my organization folks, they're all working from home. All of these are tracked. All of these are reported to customers. Customer work with them directly, and so on and so forth. But if you look at it, look at the emotional drivers we're talking about. What we are also doing in addition today is how do we extend the empathy, sympathy? How do we extend? There could be pressure at home. We'll have to do some household chorus versus, yes, Indians, I'm sorry, I don't want to generalize, but then most of us in India, we're not used to working from home for long hours. For us, work would mean going to an office, sitting inside a premise, sitting in a chair and a desk and working. But that has changed. Right? One, technology has enabled it, but two, are we ready from our mindset perspective? That is also a skill that we need to start building to the next generation workforce we're even talking about. We should start building in that as a curricula in my perspective with our grads and undergrads and postgrads as well, saying, you know what?
So guys, all I'm trying to allude is, as much as we have hard skill, soft skill, building skill across not just technology but all the industries that we saw, the most critical one that I would want to allude to is also how do you build in the emotional resilience, right? How do we build this? How do we coach our students to be emotionally stronger, because the ways of working is going to change drastically. They might not have this large team, large offices to work with by the time they pass out and hit. So how do we cope up with that change as well? It's something that we need to build, right? So when I talk about skill, it is not just to reload, it is not the hard skill, soft skill, but it is also beyond that, right? And that is what I want to allude. Now, finally, from an organization standpoint, the challenge that I have, rather we will have, is also to understanding what we call as the culture. So we do not know what is a work culture going forward, right? What's going to be the culture, right? When all of them most of them are going to work from home, what is this one organization culture that we're going to move towards? What is that going to be? It's something that we need to figure out. And can we bring in certain behaviors, traits, which will help align culture into the organization? Is something that we can think about as well. Can we induce behaviors such as systems thinking, right? I'm sure most of us would have heard something called as design thinking. How do you bring in elements of design thinking? How do you bring in elements of entrepreneurial skills? How do you bring in elements of emotional resilience, right? How do you bring in elements of reskilling, upskilling, cross-skilling? So these are challenges that we need to be ready with. And these are areas that we have to be ready from a curriculum perspective, right? I know I kind of went back and forth on a lot of areas. I will pause and I might as well take questions rather than technology kind of letting me down as well. So I'll take a pause here, Anbu. I'll take questions if that is okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I think we'll just wait for some questions from the chat window. Now, if there is any questions, kindly put it in the chat window. I'll take it up with Mr. Satish. Sorry for that technical glitch in between due to some local bandwidth issue. So I have one question to you. If you can tell the top 2 or 3 skills which post-COVID the students must have, among many things you discussed, specific to a graduating student. What are the top 2-3 skills that you think are very important and vital?
I would put my priority top on agility. I know it's a very cliche, high-level word, but how are students, ready with a changing mindset, right? You have to be able to pick up any job that's coming your way. Considering the situation, there will be a lot of job changes that will happen. I'm sure there are in news that there are job reduction, job optimization, and so on. But how can you quickly adapt to situation? How quickly can you be agile to move into what you're getting and not just waiting, saying, no, I will wait for this company, that skill, and all of those. I think that is a movement, that is a shift that we need to look at.
Okay. So, there was one question in the chat. Do you think even the recruitment patterns will change post-COVID era?
Definitely, yes. If you look at, I don't know, I've flashed my LinkedIn out there. If you look at my LinkedIn and post and whatever that we've been doing, from our organization standpoint, just this month alone, we've done hundreds of onboarding. And onboarding is not into our office. I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds of onboarding across the globe. And all of these are through remote onboarding. All of these are virtual recruitment, virtual hiring, virtual offers, and virtual onboarding as well. Everything is virtual. Like I said, that is the mind shift that we're trying to bring in, Anbu.
Okay, I think that's the one Mr. Sai was also talking about. The onboarding which they've started even with. No. There was one more question, since you are also associated with SHRM and things like that. Now, how far you value all these online training and certifications?
Okay. I want to give a 50-50 answer to this, right? Pardon me because we've tried and tested, not just in my organization but across the industry. There are plenty of courses in the taking, right? If you look at government sponsored courses as well, the SWAYAM, I'm not sure how many of us have gone in and checked. To me, I learned from that as well. You name it, all of those are there in that portal. But the point that Anbu, that I want to rebut to your question is, it is how serious, how accountable each student wants to be and deep dive and learn, right? Sai brought in a point. I would also want to kind of bring this up. In a webinar, culturally, we are all open to a classroom where 40 people sit and look at a professor or a teacher in a school or college or university. But in a webinar, you wouldn't know what is the reaction on the other side unless you monitor all the videos, right? Same is a criticality for e-learning. E-learning can be a supplement to a learning to me, right? E-learning content could be to enhance your knowledge, to test your knowledge, to refresh your knowledge. But if you want to build a skill, in my view, you'll have to do, you really have to do a session like this. You need to have a face-to-face webinar. You need to understand the emotions and connect to your students emotionally. That's what we do. In our organizations, we connect to our employees through an app, through a platform. We see them. We kind of push a lot of learning through them, understand their emotions, put their hand up to raise questions. We do that virtually. And follow that up with a course that we have internally. Run a learning content, run a quick bite course, run a short bite course. We put a lot of videos into their mobile phones. They click on it, they learn. they do 1 or 2 questions, right? It is not a e-learning questions now have about 30-40 questions to test your knowledge. Gone are the days. Today, our mindset of employees or students these days is very, very limited. Their attention span has come down drastically. I'm sure you all know much more in academic perspective. So how do we test our knowledge? We are testing knowledge based on pushing one video of 2 minutes, asking 2 questions. That is how we are testing knowledge as well.
So let me take one last question from the chat. I already asked you about the process in which the campus recruiter is going to change. So now people now, because of this virtual platforms and things like, do you think even the campus HRs will not go to a college? They will sit in a location. They will do remote interviews. So do you think that is just going to come after this, or it's a long shot?
See, it's again volume. What we're looking at is a significant volume. Large organizations that run a lot of volume hiring, right? They would tend towards a technology-based hiring, right? Because look at the time, effort, energy, and more than all of these three, getting the right set of students with the right set of capability and agility that we spoke about. So their selection criteria would become technology-focused, but the offer and engagement will still be like what Sai said. The engagement would still be in person. That no way that we can replace that, right? In the last 3 months, if we need to engage students, we will come to the college. We will engage the students that have been offered through our organization, run them through certain information, run them through the programs that they will be part of. All of those will still be in person, but the selection would tend towards technology platform for sure.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. I think thanks a lot, Mr. Sai. You have to just switch on the mic. Mike is switched off.
I have to make a point. This last 2 years, there is an paradigmic shift in the hiring process where TCS, they used to come have an interview in the campus. That's what the traditional method. They have a list of accredited colleges and they will only visit the colleges. Last 2 years, they have made it pan-India. So any student from any college can register in their portal. They have been conducting some contests. They have been conducting some their process of hiring will be 8 to 9 months. Last 2 years, the process has been shrunk to 2 months. So they have already predefined the requirements, what they want, and they have selected students those who are not getting opportunities. Or earlier 30,000 students have been interviewed. Now 3 lakh students are getting shortlisted. From that, they are taking the best of the best. So things are changing rapidly, and once again, even before COVID, they have moved to those. The mass hiring.
Sir, Mr. Satish is Dr. Mr. Sai, whatever he's telling, is it the new normal way? Will that be for all companies?
Already happening. It's not new normal. It's already been.
Right. It's old normal. It's done. So the new normal is going to be the next generation. How do we remotely engage students in universities? How do we kind of give them a industry scenario? In fact, I'm part of a couple of university board as well from a curricular perspective. So what I've also been proposing is, can we bring in, like I said, the design thinking perspective? Can we create students lab, right? And I'm a very strong proponent of this students placement council to be renamed and reclassified into students solution council or a development council, right? Let's give the industry problem statement to students. Let them resolve it, and that is going to solve the hunger. Right today, sorry, I'm going to be a little myopic around it. The number of patents, number of theses that are going out from our country is much lower when compared to East or Western countries. Why is that happening? Because we're not exposing them earlier during that age of saying, hey, this is the problem statement that industry has. Why don't you work on it? Start from undergraduation. Start from graduation. Start from post-graduation. Saying, you know what? This is what this industry has. We saw about 55% of the agricultural jobs have come down because of automation, right? So how do can we go to a farmer and say, if there is a drip irrigation, how do we enhance a drip irrigation? Can we put that as a problem statement, right? Solar energy could be one. Industry could be one. Pick large world hunger kind of a problem. Give it to our students. For all that you may know, you have bright minds sitting there with some ideas. I'm sure you would have seen in the news televisions these days, right? China was boasting around saying robots serving tablets and medicines and other stuff, right, for COVID-affected patients. But our folks have done it in Kerala and everywhere else. In no time, in 1 week, 2 weeks, they've developed the robots, right? So the mindset, the ability, the potential is there. It is about how do we nurture them, and that's what I spoke about. how do we identify that agility and entrepreneurial spirit and kind of push that as a curriculum?
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thanks a lot for your inspiring presentation. Very informative, and also you spoke about the new normal way and gave us a lot of insights for all academic leaders and the educators to take inputs. And I'll share your presentation also along with Mr. Sai's presentation to the team, because lot many are there. No, people will have to imbibe it and then take it to their students. Let me thank you on behalf of ICT Academy and the entire academic community for joining us, an industry speaker, Mr. Satish. And I also thank Mr. Sai for giving an academic perspective. Mr. Sai, you have any final words to be made? Your partnership with ICT Academy, and are we doing some sense in working with
is excellent, and you will never fail to surprise us. So even in this pandemic, you made this arrangement and you made sure that everyone is engaged in a proper way. So great going. As I will just point out to Satish, what we are implementing this fifth methodology: feel, imagine, do, and then share. So we have to feel the problems and we have to imagine a solution for those problems. Then we have to find a solution, and we have to do. And even in containment zone, when people are being kept in the Chennai corporation, within 2 or 3 days, people have started to create a robo with cameras and with the speakers. So they have been given instruction not to do these things, and they have been monitored with the camera. That's happening. So our kids are exceptionally well. They have to get an opportunity to expose, and they have to given a platform, and we have to give a right platform. We will be giving that. So thanks for
it. Absolutely. That's a nail in the box, right? So, like I said, we have tremendous potential. It is about how we kind of bring that out, show that talent, and how do we nurture that out, right? And that is going to make the future for us. That's the view. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think we are closing on dot by 11:30 now. Thank you very much to both of you for spending your morning with us and making the morning really a wonderful morning. Somebody in the chat was mentioning this is a real wonderful morning today to have two excellent speakers, very informative, and lot of takeaways. People will have to take back and work on it. So it's really the foresight. And forward thinking by Dr. Prakash, Sai Prakash, and also very informative session by Mr. Satish. So thank you to both of you for coming in, and thank you for spending your time, some both of you.